Thank you. Um, Welcome to part two. I do want to comment on one thing Mary Ellen Johns had we've seen an increase in the presence and participation of dads in faith formation because of family catechesis. That may be the highest compliment you'll receive for doing a family model or a intergenerational model. So that's great. We're going to share with you um, in part two some pathways to family catechesis. I'll introduce those. And then we're going to have a group discussion. We'll break out in groups of about 5 people and talk about what you are currently doing in family catechesis and parent formation as well. And what would you like to do? Um, and we'll ask you to drop some comments into the chat about what you're doing. And then we'll share the new ideas are really more practical. How do I implement family catechesis? And we'll wrap up with that. So welcome to part two. Let's kind of launch in. So this is one of the ways we've thought about this pathways. Like, so how do you move towards a real intentionality about family formation? And so what I'd like to suggest is this, and it looks linear, but they do build on each other. Maybe it's more concentric circles is what I really want to communicate as a diagram, but every parish can be more family friendly as a church community. Every parish can do that. And it's when I say that, I mean, it's just looking at our community life and saying, how do we involve families? How do we connect with families? How do we make them feel welcomed at Sunday Mass, at church life, at church events? How do we bring them front and center in what we do? But just to be able to have a conversation, how to become more family friendly as a church community would be a wonderful way. And every church can do what I'll call these confidence building activities that help the church community feel, well, we're doing more with our families. Second one, oops, sorry. Come back here. Second one, to incorporate family catechesis experience throughout the year. This is what Joan highlighted in her models. Maybe it's sacramental preparation, which is kind of a low-hanging fruit. We're already gathered with them. How do we bring family-centered models into our sacramental prep? Seasonal family activities, 1, 2, 3 across the year, or quarterly gatherings. Some churches have a fall, they have a winter, they have a spring, or they have a summer festival, that kind of things. So it's family catechesis kind of woven into the fabric of our annual calendar. And then making family catechesis the primary model. You saw Paulette talk about family catechesis only or family catechesis within intergenerational catechesis. That does not preclude doing specialized age group experiences through the year. I see sometimes we think these are either or, and they're really both and models. It's working with the whole family as well as meeting the needs of particular age groups from the youngest to the oldest. So we can support our family catechesis model by specialized age group experiences throughout the year for children and parents, for younger children, for middle school teens, etc. And then I think one of the goals we want to work towards, and I'll explain this a little bit more when we come back from your discussion, is to really think about family faith formation and catechesis from 0 to 18. How do we design a plan that's continuous, not start and stop catechesis, but continuous flow from birth and baptism right through the graduation of high school. Design a plan for continuous family faith formation. Build this over a couple of years. Think about this as a 3-year process of how we build a plan that's continuous, not start and stop. I mean, people might be start and stop, but the parish shouldn't be start and stop. There should be a flow to catechesis from 0 to 18. I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. So those are some of the pathways that we can see, and we'll kind of dig a little bit into how some of the action steps. But so when you're thinking about where do I begin, here's 4 starting points, and I really think they're more building. Everybody can become more family friendly, begin to incorporate over time, perhaps move to an actual family catechesis or intergenerational model, and then thinking about how do I do this 2-decade continuous flow of family catechesis. So we'd like to suggest in your groups, and I'm going to organize you into groups in a minute, to think about these two questions. Just jot these down for yourself. I'll try to drop them into the chat. Hopefully you'll be able to see them now. Think about what your parish is currently doing, and share first kind of around your group. First time around, just share what you're currently doing with the whole family and with parents. Then second time around, this could be just a group discussion. What do you imagine is possible? So what can you do to engage the whole family? Or what can you do to promote the growth of parents? So one is current and one is potential. So now we've got literally a whole agenda. We could do a whole webinar just on the questions. They're terrific. Um, one of the questions was, do parishes have 100% participation? No. And in fact, what you want to see this as is a multi-year building engagement and participation. Because the model, in so many parishes, if you've been in the classroom model for the last 50 years, this is like, oh my God, you want me to do what? And come as a whole family and talk about faith together? Really? So it takes a while to get over the drop-off pickup mentality, which has been prevalent, right? It moving away into a much more highly engaged, interactive model of catechesis takes some time. So you have to see this, and that's why we're talking about transition, this process in a minute. You have to see this as over the next 2 or 3 years, if you're going to transition or move from a classroom only to a more family catechesis model, you have to build that year by year, and you build participation and engagement year by year, just like you build parents' confidence and competence each year. So just be willing to take a longer view. It's not going to hit the ground running. We've done the other model for 70 years. You're not going to change everything in the fall of 24 and see the same kind, all these results. So just be patient with that. Somebody asked about Formed and Alpha. Formed is a resource, not a program. People kind of we have a subscription form, it's going to solve our problems. No, it's a resource. It's like buying a library, right? It's only as good as the ability to use that resource. So I would say, and Alpha is obviously a different animal because it's a distinct program, but it's for adults. And there's a teen version as well. So I would suggest that you see these as part of your resource pool, but it's not family catechesis. It's resources to use in family catechesis. The question around Catholic schools and sacramental prep, that's really diocese by diocese. Everybody seems to have their own policy and approach. That's not one we're going to wade into. It's just because there's so many different views on that. Put it this way, no matter where you're doing sacramental prep, doing it with the whole family is just better. And having parents engaged is just better. And so you think about how you work that context. But I know there's just different diocesan policies, and it's just better to let that sit for the moment. Having parents teach as catechists facilitate, that's another one of the elements that you build towards. So if I was starting some family catechesis in the fall, I'm not going to put parents on the spot. Remember, almost all of our catechists right now are parents. So so this is not like, it's not like you import catechists who are not parents. Most of them are parents. That the mom is teaching 3rd grade catechesis because her child's in 3rd grade. So I think you have to build up parents to able to move. So maybe it's more catechist led in the initial years, and then becomes much more of a shared thing as you move through it. Again, think 3 years. Don't think just the fall.
And some of the activities that you can implement when you have the families there together, when you have a parent or parents at a table with their children, think about the things that you're inviting them to do when they're together at church that can help them maybe kind of realize or have this aha moment of, oh, I just taught them that, or, think of activities that they can engage in together that help the parent, give the parent a refresher without saying that necessarily. Give them the same information as the kids or help them discover the same information as the kids. And then include some similar kinds of activities and suggestions that they can do during the month at home together. So, there's an opportunity when you have them there with the kinds of activities that you invite them to help them begin to develop those skills, even though they may not realize that that's what is happening, and then build on that.
Yeah. Oh, building on Paula's point, see what you're doing in introducing family catechesis as a two-level operation. What everybody sees is the family catechesis programs, activities at church, at home. That's what they see. But what you're doing underneath that is you're building the parents' confidence and competence. And that takes time. But over time, if you think about this as a two-level piece, over time, parents continue to grow. So it's like a little wave that starts to build. If that's your vision, over 2 or 3 years, you start to be able to incorporate them more fully. It's the same way you would approach people who want to be a catechist. Some are ready to jump in, but some need just a way to apprentice a bit before they're ready to take on that role. Susan asked a great question about bilingual, multilingual parishes. So I have a parish close by, and I'll share their model in a minute, that has moved to a family catechesis model. They do 3 family catechetical programs each month, first week of the month. 2 are in English and 1 is entirely in Spanish. It's always the same content. Obviously, the activities and the rest are a little bit different in each, but everybody's on the same page content-wise or thematically. But they have a large Spanish-speaking population, and oftentimes that program will also have English components because of the children are maybe more comfortable in English than in Spanish. The other 2 are in English. So you adapt to that, and even in the Spanish-speaking group, it's not all of the Hispanic community. There are other people who are part of that group because they just love being part of that, and they'll work with the materials because they're in English and Spanish because of the 2 programs. They'll participate in that. So different styles, different communities, but realize you don't have to do this. Like, it's really hard doing it in multilingual program in real time, but to offer the same program in different languages, adapted for the cultures and the rest, that's easily done. And of course, the family catechesis model within an Hispanic Latino family is just kind of like is a match made in heaven because of the kinship model that's present in Hispanic communities. We know you could have talked much longer, and I'll just preview this, and then we're going to move into the next piece. We're over the next month, NCCL is moving from its current website into an interactive community model. Okay, so if you will, we're going to have not only our website and other features, but we're also going to have what I'll call a Facebook-like community gathering space and small groups built around interest, one of which will definitely be family catechesis. So to the point we want to talk more with people, we're going to ask you to join one of those groups that'll be moderated. So like a Facebook group, people who are really concerned about family catechesis to share with each other, to ask questions, to get resources. That's going to emerge over the next couple of months, but know that that's coming, and we've heard that. And so we're trying to respond to that. Give us a little bit of time. We're just ramping up. Okay, so we got so many. Oh my goodness, we got so many questions. I'm going to print out the so on Monday when we post all this, I'll print out for you the chat, because there's just great comments and questions and responses from all of you, just like a learning community. So thank you for all of those. And we might do another webinar just around the questions. We'll just call it questions people have about family catechesis. We'll just talk about the questions, so we have some fun. Okay, let me jump back into the PowerPoint. And just the last point is just to kind of, if you will, launch you. And so these pathways to being deeper is just, for me, really, really important. So let me share again. Watch the flow from becoming more family friendly, which everybody can do, into moving to what I think the most ambitious piece is, designing a plan for continuous family faith formation. So here's some first steps ideas. We've already illuminated those, but this is where everybody can start. So if you're thinking, how do I just kind of get I'm going to say it, how do I get my parish to experience this so that they're going to be able to want to go deeper? So here's just some simple first steps. The seasonal festival is a great way to begin, and people will come. It's Advent, it's especially Lent. Everybody's got to do something for Lent. And Pentecost is usually at the end of the program year, so it's a great opportunity, right? Redesigning, if your sacramental prep is primarily classes for children and maybe a mandatory parent session, how about redesigning those into more parent-child family catechesis experiences so that they're learning together. And if they're learning together, then you have the ability to take home things and do things together. And so you're helping build parents' comfort level with their second or third grader, which is just terrific. How about taking if you do vacation Bible school, why don't you add 1 or 2 evening sessions or a culminating experience for the whole family? So moms and dads and the older siblings, they all get a chance to experience something that their younger brother or sister is participating in VBS. So it's just kind of adding on, and it just gives people another experience. They're already one or two of their children are participating in VBS. This is an add-on to that. You build a little dinner with some activities. I think people will come. Expand on those. So developing a plan for family catechesis expands on those ideas. So add a whole family catechesis session every 6 weeks. So I worked with one church, and what they did is they taught 5 weeks of the more traditional kind of classroom approach. The 6th week was a family catechesis session on basically on the core themes that were being covered in that first. If you have kind of a spiral curriculum and everybody's doing creed for the first 4 or 5 sessions, then the family catechesis is on creed. And then back to age group catechesis, and then another one. So over the course of the year, you might do 3 or 4 spliced into your weekly catechetical model. Offer a fall, winter, spring family workshop. And I emphasize workshop as opposed to a catechetical program in this sense. Make it about family life skills, things that are very practical that would be easy to attract people to. So how do we communicate more effectively? Or, how do we manage our time as a family? And, all those kinds of good things. So pick some family life skills, do a workshop. Same kind of template as we looked in the family learning process, but this time it's more of a workshop format. Redesign VBS to involve the whole family. Okay, so it might be an afternoon evening VBS or an evening only VBS. Lots of parishes have started doing grandparent-grandchild VBS programs, which is just a natural, right? Or design a family service experience for the whole family, like in the summertime, or a service Saturday kind of experience. So you're giving people more experiences, families more experiences of doing things together in a structured, intentional kind of way that builds faith and practices faith. Transforming ideas. Work towards implementing a family catechesis model. And there's so many ways to do it. I mean, we've tried, I think, hopefully you got a sense it's not like I'm implementing family catechesis as if that only means one thing. No, when you think about family catechesis, there's all kinds of models that have to be contextual, implemented in our parish community. So it can have large group gatherings at church. It can have family clusters of 6 to 10 families. A lot of people in the pandemic moved to that kind of family cluster model because they didn't want to gather big groups, but they could gather smaller groups. You could offer both options. Come to a large group gathering monthly at church, or a family cluster monthly in different people's homes in the parish community. Think about this in a hybrid way. What do we need to do together at church together? What do we need to do at home? What could we be doing online? By now, we should have enough experience with the online that doing things hybrid should be kind of second nature to us. Lots of churches do this weekly. That's a lot, but they do it in shorter bites. In fact, some churches, I can even show you, I think. No, I don't have the template here, but some churches will take the family catechesis learning process, and in week 1, because they're weekly, they do the opening activity. Week 2, they do a breakout kind of experience. Week 3, they do a whole family. So they take the learning process and break it into different weeks. Others do twice monthly, every other week, and some do monthly. But even those who do monthly doesn't mean that's all they do during the month. And the content varies. and no surprises about what the content is. So here's just an example of what I call a hybrid model, meaning it's multiple ways of learning all woven into one model. Um, Here's a church, and this is representative, I think, of a lot of different churches that kind of have their own spin on this. First week of the month, we have our family session and gathering at church, 2+ hours following the kind of process we've looked at. That model, depending on the size of the church, you do 1, 2, 3. Some churches do 4 or 5, but it's kind of like this is family catechesis, family gathered catechesis week. Week 2 is at home. It's an extension of what you've started in week 1. Same topic, same theme. They can access that content. Maybe it's watch a video, maybe it's pray, maybe it's discuss something, maybe it's a scripture activity. Short, small bites of content that they can weave into their at-home experience. Week 3, this is age group learning week. It could be on the same theme. I know some churches that use that kind of have a kind of a textbook oriented approach to week 3. So you got, again, hybrid, blending different approaches. But if you took a theme like this month is on Advent, we explore it in week 1, experience it all together. We go home, we start doing Advent type activities. Week 3, we explore more deeply the coming of the Messiah, the scripture, but in age group learning. In week 4, we go back on home. So family, home, age group, home. So you develop a rhythm. Every church can develop its rhythm. What I like about it is it's hybrid. It's every single week. It's something different every week. And then thinking about, so there was a question about what do you do from 0 to 5 or 6 years old? And I'll put an example of that online for you to look at. But this is the systemic idea. Okay, so we're used to thinking programmatically. What if you thought more systemically? How do we accompany families and parents from 0 baptism to the graduation of high school with faith-forming experiences at church, at home, online, in large groups and small groups? And so, yes, it's going to look really different with 0 to 5-year-olds, but in that 0 to 5-year-old age group, you could be thinking about what's appropriate in the first 6 months of life. In the old days, our Sunday visitor did parent pages. Some of you will remember that. And every 6 months, you would send that to the families who had their child baptized. Your child at 6 months, 12, 18, 24, etc. And so we can do that now digitally, which is so much easier. And maybe quarterly gatherings or twice-a-year gatherings with parents and babysitting. So every one of these stages is going to look different, but it's going to weave together experiences at church, home, online, large group, small group. Wouldn't it be great in 3 years from now, you said, here's our plan for family faith growth from 0 to 18. And so that's why I want to add, and kind of with this slide is, when you're creating a plan, think about what can we do short term. I call it the low-hanging fruit. We can do this pretty quickly. So if we're not doing family catechesis now in my parish, I can start by doing a couple of festivals. It's short term. I'll plan for, let's say next year, Advent and Lent. Lent's kind of around the corner this year, so it's too quick. And then what are the things that need more design time? Okay, I need some more time to build a volunteer leadership and begin to introduce these ideas. In long term, in 3 years, I want to be offering primarily a family catechesis model supported by a variety of other ones. So think about planning in these 3 buckets. What can I do short term? What can I do midterm? What do I need to do long term? And think about this over a 3-year period. I think what you'll find if you do that over 3 years, what you'll find is it breaks these things into more bite-sized chunks to be able to implement. So we've kind of given you kind of a sense of here's different models, here's kind of a flow of how it could work. Find out where you are and what's your next best step, and then put it into that template of saying short-term, midterm, long-term. How do I move from that? I just think it helps you in planning. You don't need to run, but you need to be methodical and intentional, finding where what's best in your church setting and what's contextual. So I really want to emphasize that part, because a lot of times people say, well, if I don't get this all done in the fall, you're not going to get it all done in the fall. What's your next best step in the fall? What's your next best step in 2025? Your next best step in 2026? My goal being to more fully engage families, to help parents grow in faith and discipleship so they can share faith with their children, and to move towards a comprehensive, integrated plan for faith forming from 0 to 18. That may take 3 or 4 years, but boy, that's going to be worth it. So this shift, grounded in research, we see actual models from parishes. We've tried to give you some strategies, begin to think about that. Let's wrap up. Let's see what some questions that you're perking on. Paulette and Joan, come on back. Let's take a look at some of the questions. Oh, or some comments. We had a Pentecost birthday party for the church last year. You know, if, by the way, you're working with families. If these aren't fun, don't do it. Like people, I don't know how else to explain that. It's like if these don't have a fun factor in it, doesn't mean it has to be fun and games. I don't mean that you have to wear party hats and stuff. I mean, it's got to be engaging. It's got to be fun. People have to enjoy learning. And learning's got a bad name because people are learning, they're always kind of like these dour faces on. Learning is the most exciting thing you be doing in life. So people should have some fun engaging in learning. And families should have fun interacting with each other, parents with other parents, all those things are possible. I love the birthday party for the church. Think about another half dozen ideas like that over the next couple of years, and you're building a platform for being more intentional about family catechesis. Other kinds of questions, thoughts here. Yeah, Shelley mentioned many of the publishers now have family catechesis options online. They do. It'd be really, and you see some of those. You have some curricular things. Sophia Institute has kind of a 4-year curriculum approach. Creed, sacraments, morality, prayer. Other ones are more modular, but as opposed to 20 years ago, there's lots of resources when you go looking. And these optional things that are online, if you're doing family catechesis, they're not optional. They're the heart of what we do, right? So see that as an opportunity. And if you do scripture, like if you took a year and we're going to do scripture, or a couple of years, there's so many family activities for scripture, and there's family Bibles that are meant with scripture, all the activities in them too. So this is not a resource problem by any means, let alone all the videos that are available. So you're going to curate more than you're going to create. That's the good news. Publishers are going to create stuff online. People are going to create that. Organizations are going to create resources. So there's just an abundance of those. And now you're going to be looking, what do they have for families at home, at church? How do I incorporate that into what I'm doing? So you need to have a plan. So you can't buy family catechesis. You can buy a textbook series, but you have to create a plan for family catechesis, and then the resources come second. Plan first, resources second. Not buy a textbook and not have to worry anymore. Those days are gone. All right. So, well, Nancy's question was, do you have to continue using textbooks? Now it's a choice. And now textbooks can be a resource. I worked with one parish, and I think St. Mary's Press still publishes it, but it was the Catholic Faith Handbook. It was kind of like a youth catechism, like the adult catechism the bishops published at the USCCB. And that was kind of like, that was the take home. Have that at home along with the Bible, right? And once you got that at home, then you could reference in the rest. So there was a textbook, but not when we traditionally think about a textbook. Some models, my good friend and colleague, Kathy Amity, they still use textbooks, and she uses that in the breakout session. So there's family session, family activity. In the middle, it's the textbook series, more systematic. She's done it for almost 30 years. So it works really, really well. So textbook as a resource versus textbook is the curriculum in the program. So once you develop the mindset, textbooks are a resource, then you're off and running. And today's textbooks are pretty flexible by and large. I mean, like some are not, and you know which ones are not, and you know which ones are. The more flexible the resource, the textbook is, the easier it is for you to use. So I like printed materials. I'm just an old guy, but I think it provides something that's a comfort for parents, but also come from our catechists or teachers. We got some resources to work with.
John, I saw a
Yeah,
question
please.
I'd like to jump in on if that's
Yeah,
okay.
go pull it.
Somebody was commenting about, it's very difficult to get families to buy in, and they want to drop their kids off. And yes, that is something that we all have to deal with. I think that is an opening to talk a little bit about communication and publicity and things like that, which we really haven't addressed. Um, John, you're right. If it's not fun, don't do it. And if it's not engaging, don't do it. I mean, sometimes we're going to have things that are just really cool and meaningful prayer experiences. And we might not describe them as fun, but they pull people in and speak to their hearts and so forth. But I think wrapped around all of that is getting the word out, and getting the families who do come, who do have a good experience, figuring out ways to leverage that to maybe create a little bit of FOMO, right? I don't want to miss out, and so taking pictures, posting pictures, um, getting stuff out on social media, teasing a little bit about what's coming up, but don't show your whole hand. I think all of those things are need to be part of the planning. And I know it sounds like a lot, but I think that's part of what you want to wrap around your plan is, okay, how do we communicate it? How do we package it? How do we make it look attractive? And then how do we share the good news of this great thing that we did? And help to create an environment in which people want to come next time and check it out. Or they heard in school from their friend about how much fun they had at church last Tuesday night. Maybe we'll go next month. And it's slow and gradual, and it takes time, and you need to be patient and persistent. But I think that those are all things that are important to be attentive to as well. Attractive posters around your campus. If you have the parents' permission, posting pictures of, that great Mardi Gras where we burned the palms and the kids, kids were kind of dazzled by the fire, and then we buried the Alleluia, and but around that we ate pancakes and had fun, and that type of thing. Anyway, I think that can be one way to help to sell it to your parents, if you will.
Social media, Instagram, Facebook is made for the stories, the images, the little short videos of what you might have missed tonight, right? So I just think, again, broadening your volunteer leadership base. Who are some of your social media people who are be taking some short videos, some photos, posting things on Facebook, posting things on Instagram, for example, and saying, we did who was the birthday party for the church. Here's our photos. Here's our gallery from the birthday party. Nothing creates excitement more than seeing people engaged and enjoying themselves. If people have sad faces on, either pay them to smile or don't take photographs. And do a different program next time. So I think it's so great to be able to use these tools for people to share their stories and images, photographs, personal things. I had one parish that went around at the end of their end of the year evaluation, was going around saying, "What did you like best this year?" And just with their iPhone, just recording the interviews, and they popped them up on that was the best promotion. It cost them nothing. And they popped up on Facebook. They put it on a YouTube channel. Oh my goodness. Because people were excited to hear other people, not us, who get, in quotes, paid to promote this. They were hearing people who participated share their participation stories. That's the best. So we are almost at our time. Any last questions? This is your chance before. The questions you're asking are just the best, and the comments and reflections. I think you'll enjoy reading the chat, which is not usual from a Zoom meeting, but so Denise had an interesting upside, adding the family formation model as well as keeping the weekly drop-off model, in quotes, for parents who need that kind of support, and that's true. Actually gets smaller groups in your age group programming, which might make it a little bit more, easier, but also a little more community building. The other thing about family catechesis is we often think mom, dad, and the two kids. Well, it's about 25%, 30% of all the families in the United States today. There's a lot of family diversity. So it really be great to realize that grandparents can bring their children, their grandchildren to family catechesis night, that you can have some non-kindred parents and grandparents available to accompany children whose parents just can't be there. All right. So, don't make that a problem, make that an opportunity to bring in other people who become role models. And then I just think it's, God, that's it, godparents. Yes. The grandparent generation is waiting to be asked to do something significant. Ask them. Ask them. And every parish has a lot of those people. You may not have a lot of young people, but you got a lot of old people like me. So ask them to do something like this to accompany parents and accompany younger in children. I think it's a winner. So we are at our closing point. I just can't thank you enough for participating with us. We had a good time doing this, by the way, as you could probably tell. Research will be there. I'm going to print out the questions and just see what possibilities are. Know that over the next couple of months, there's some really great things coming out from NCCL. You want to be in tune on that. And just a reminder, next month we start the first of what will be 4 professional development courses. February is on prayer with John Michael Reyes. So it's on the website. It's in the emails I sent to everybody. Sign up for a professional development course. I think you'll have a great time, and it gives you a chance to go deeper with a smaller group of people. So we're doing prayer and leadership and volunteers. So I think you'll like all of those. So God bless all of you. Joan, thank you. Paulette, thank you. The research team and the presentation team today. Thank you all for coming. Our next online conference will be in June, but it'll be an online retreat, afternoon retreat. Well, depends on what time zone you are. So it'll be a 3-hour retreat experience with Tom Quinlan, who's in the St. Joseph Educational Center and author in Des Moines, Iowa. I hope he's staying warm. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.